Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi, flying solo today. Fruit Loop has an appointment and she has stuff to do the rest of the day. So we decided to go ahead and put these updates out since we're at the end of the week. And we'll be back for you fresh as a duo on Monday. So, real quick, we want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Two Cool T-shirt Quilts. You can go to twocooltshirtquilts.com/pretty lies and alibis. Check them out. All right. So, yesterday I was sitting here doing some work and heard a bunch of sirens. So, about 2 minutes later, I had an alert on my phone that there was a reported shooting at a middle school called Tanglewood, not too far from my house here. And we followed that story all day yesterday. Come to find out, it's insane. A 12-year-old boy is charged with murder. He shot and killed a 12-year-old student in the middle of the hallway. Just crazy. And also a reminder that this stuff is not always far away. It was way too close for comfort. Fruit Loop and I both know people who work there and have kids that go there. Just a big tragedy. So sad to hear. And also, one of the things that I have mentioned earlier this week is doing an update on Jodi Arias, kind of see where she's at now, what she's up to. We're going to have that next week for you. I'm working on that now. Before we get started with the news updates, the next court date for Chad Daybell is April 19th. That's the motion to reconsider transport or transfer of venue to Ada County. So, unless something else pops up, that'll be the next time we see Chad in the courtroom. All right. So, we're going to jump into Naomi Irion. And as of now, I haven't seen anything indicating that they've upgraded those charges against Troy Driver. And the criminal complaint said that Driver abducted her on or about March 12th and did hold or detain her for the purpose of committing sexual assault and or purpose of killing her. So a coworker of his has talked to mainstream media yesterday and today. And we're just going to share what he says because he was with him after Naomi was murdered. And so his name is Joel Centillion. I hope I said that right. You know how we butcher names, y'all. That's a coworker of Troy's, and he spoke saying that Troy was acting very odd in the days after her murder. And so Driver was Joe's mentor on the job for just a few weeks before his arrest. And he said he went to the FBI about his suspicions and maybe that's what led them to her body. We're not sure yet. They have not said, but somebody gave a tip because that's what they said in their statement. And he also said that Driver was arrested at his work, which is a place called LegCorp in Reno, and not at his home. He said they came in with guns blazing to get him. Joel said he was fired after he went to the FBI because he gave them a company laptop and a phone to see if there was any evidence on it. He said the company tried to wipe the phone and laptop before they could be checked by the FBI. And a LegCorp spokesman denies that, saying that the firing had nothing to do with Driver. And Joel thinks that Driver maybe buried some evidence in the mines. This is a company that works in mines, by the way. He said the weekend Naomi was abducted, he got a text from Driver saying that he got a court subpoena for an underage minor incident and he wouldn't be into work on Monday. And he said that's not like Driver and the time he's worked with him, that normally he's always at work. And also that next day on Tuesday, he said he was late to work, which is unlike him as well. He said this past Tuesday evening around 9:30, Troy said he needed to go to the bathroom, and they both did. So he said they stopped at a mine in Nye County, and I mean, it's kind of gross, but Joel said he didn't hear anything indicating that Troy was using the restroom. And so he wondered if maybe he walked off and dumped some evidence in that area. The next day, he said Driver left and went to a mine by himself, which is unusual. And he said he knew something was up with him and he walked 2 miles by himself. And this Joel guy said that's a perfect place to dump whatever he might want to dump. He said the other thing is that Driver shaved his beard that next week and told Joel he went camping with his wife and kids, but Joel said that Driver is separated from his wife, and he thought that story was a lie. So the other thing that Joel questioned is why LegCorp would hire Driver with such a violent history, which we've talked about before. He served 12 years in prison for accessory after the fact, robbery, and burglary. So that's kind of all we know about Naomi's case right now. They may be waiting just to get some DNA evidence back that would tie him directly to her body or something. He still has a $750,000 bond, although I think if he were to try to make that, they would probably jump in and prevent it. So let's jump to Barry Morphew. He was in court earlier this week, and the hearing was focused on who will be allowed to testify at his trial, which begins April 28th, by the way. This is such a disaster for the state. Two of the witnesses didn't even show up for the hearing at all. A third cannot testify due to sanctions. So at the end of this hearing, what essentially happened is they've decided 12 of the 14 witnesses who were expected to testify against Barry are no longer allowed to testify. One witness, a veterinarian, he was supposed to testify about tranquilizers and how it affect animals and how that could impact a human. The judge ruled against that testimony, saying there is a lack of DNA evidence on the tranquilizer cap belonging to Suzanne. If you remember, they found that cap in the dryer during the search warrant of the home. Also, a canine handler who searched for Suzanne the night she went missing will not be allowed to testify. And the handler said he filed a report on the case, but the state did not ask for it. And they also told the defense the report just didn't exist. So the prosecution got a violation for not getting the report and giving it over to the defense. And at this point, if the witness testifies, it would only be allowed as a witness, not expert testimony. It just really seems like the prosecution is so disorganized, and that's not good when you're literally less than 4 months from going to trial at this point. That's a lot of people that can't testify now. So the judge still has not ruled on the motion to dismiss the case. The defense again asked for the case to be dismissed this week. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. There was a picture of Barry and his daughters leaving the court. They all were smiling, looked happy, like nothing was wrong. So we're going to jump over to Chris and Roberta Laundrie. They filed a motion to dismiss the civil lawsuit brought forth by Gabby's parents. They call the claims that they knew about Gabby's murder and planned to help Brian leave the country baseless and frivolous. The motion says the Laundries have exercised their constitutional right to refrain from speaking and have relied on counsel to speak for them. This is not only common practice in our civilized society, but it embodies the exercise of fundamental rights under the United States and Florida constitutions. The Laundries' rights are inalienable, and the Laundries can never be liable for exercising their legal rights in a permissible way. It's kind of also the right of Gabby's parents to file a civil suit, just saying. The Laundries shouldn't be made to pay because they shunned publicity or communication with the plaintiffs. The plaintiffs were understandably fearful about what happened to their daughter, and they would have been upset about their daughter regardless of anything the Laundries could have said. But that fear or sadness was not caused by the Laundries. It was an unfortunate, unavoidable part of the entire circumstances surrounding Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito. So we haven't heard from Gabby's parents any response to that. We'll keep an eye out as well. Jumping over to Murdaugh. Lord have mercy. This case, every week, something happens. His attorneys have filed a confession of judgment in regards to the civil suit filed against him in the Satterfield case. That was for $4,305,000. There are stipulations to this, though. A judge has to sign off in the end. So a confession of judgment is a legal document that states the creditor agrees to allow a debt to obtain a judgment without consent in court. And SLED also has released a statement this week regarding 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office, particularly Duffy Stone's role. He's the prosecutor or the solicitor that recused himself from the case in the investigation not too long after Paul and Maggie's murder. So what happened essentially is a news outlet accused the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office of leading its own parallel investigation into the murders of Paul and Maggie. So SLED released a statement that said, in recent days, some media outlets have published unfounded and ill-informed speculation regarding the role of the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office in the investigation of the murders of Paul and his mother, Maggie. From the first hours of SLED's investigation, Chief Mark Keel was in direct and regular contact with both 14th Circuit Solicitor Duffy Stone and South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson. All agreed that should evidence emerge establishing a potential conflict, Chief Keel would contact Solicitor Stone and Attorney General Wilson immediately. Chief Keel did so, and Stone immediately recused himself from the case on August 11th of 21. At the scene and in subsequent days, solicitor's office investigators acted solely under Sled's direction. At no time did the solicitor's office conduct a separate or parallel investigation or act in any manner to undermine Sled's role as the lead investigative agency. On a related note, much has been made about media photographs taken at the scene on June 8th that depict solicitor's office investigators speaking with a member of the Murdaugh family. Not only was the depicted action undertaken at Sled's request, the photographs were taken after the crime scene had been processed and after Sled had cleared the Murdaugh family to return to the property. Other law enforcement agencies, including Sled, were present at the time. Any speculation to the contrary is simply false. And here's something really that got me interested. I can't wait to learn more. A private investigator by the name of Sarah Capelli was trailing Paul in the days before his murder and even installed a camera at the entrance to the property where Paul and Maggie were murdered. She was hired by Greg Parker of Parker's Convenience Stores, which is where Paul bought the alcohol the night of the fatal crash. The reason that they hired this private investigator is to dig up dirt on Paul, which was hoping to catch him talking about Mallory's death, catch him drinking and partying. And they also wanted to prove that Buster was gay to further speculation that Buster and Paul were involved with Stephen Smith's murder. Someone involved with Parker said his goal was to kind of smear the Murdaughs and make them look like terrible people so that a jury might side with him and not find his business liable for selling the alcohol to Paul, who was using Buster's ID to get it illegally. Now, this next story, y'all, I'm going to tell you, I just can't. So, a lot of you are familiar with the Turpin case that happened a couple of years ago. It was the story where 13 kids were being held, some chained to beds or chained to different furniture items. One of the daughters managed to escape and went to a neighbor's house where they called 911. The kids were aged between 2 and 29. I mean, these are adults that they were holding. So, after the parents were arrested, 5 of the Turpin siblings were placed in the same foster home after being rescued, and they were placed there in April of 2018. Now, this name is a booger. I think it's Marcelino Alguin. He's 63 years old. He's been charged, get this, with 7 counts of committing a lewd act on a child. His wife, Rosa, and their daughter, Lenny's, have also been charged with multiple charges, including witness intimidation and fraud. So this is the foster family that 5 of these poor kids went to, 2 of which were sexually abused while they were there. Sounds like a big history with these people. They were arrested in March, actually, of last year, and they sold their home about a month later. He's facing life in prison if convicted. So in all, in addition to the Turpins, they had 4 other foster kids. So that was a total of 9. They forced a 5-year-old to take sleeping pills and then would force her to stand and would ring bells in her ear and spray her with water so that she couldn't fall asleep. While this abuse was going on, they would tell the girl that because she kept them awake, she couldn't fall asleep. Eventually, the girl collapsed and fell onto a hard floor. They would also lock this girl in her room for up to 9 hours a day and would not change her diaper. So, and this is torture. They also locked her in a bathroom, telling her there were spiders in there and she would scream just to be let out. She had been beaten with sandals and choked. She was also thrown around and had a tooth knocked out. So these foster parents, I don't even want to call them foster parents, these evil people that had custody of them allegedly forced the Turpin children to take part in what they called confession circle talk, where they were forced to admit their past abuses towards their siblings, which their biological parents forced them to do while they were still living at home. They were also told that they would not see their older siblings if they didn't comply with the abuse or what they were asking of them. So 2 of these siblings, 2 of the 5 were molested by this foster dad, and the mother and the daughter aided and abetted them. One of the victims was under the age of 14. It's just insane because these kids have been through so much before this. It almost seems to me like this family probably was profiting off of having foster kids, which could be the fraud charge. I don't know. But man, we're just hearing so much crazy stuff about foster families that have bad intentions. There are a million out there with really good intentions, and we want to point that out. But just you go from one really terrible situation right into another. And some of the kids are adults, and there's been allegations that the money that was raised for them by people with good intentions was withheld from them and they couldn't even get a new bike and stuff. Just crazy. These poor kids. I did see one of the daughters met Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood. She would listen to Garth Brooks when they were in captivity, I believe. Just insane. So that kind of wraps up the week for us. We're still on competency watch for Lori. Keep an eye on that. There are some things due at 5 o'clock today to be filed, I believe, in Chad's case. Not sure if they'll post that today or what, but we'll keep an eye out. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Fruit Loop and I will be back on Monday. If nothing crazy happens, we're going to pick back up on those text messages and keep going with those. Also, at some point next week, a big Jody Arias update. All right. See you soon.